talking to you about one of my favorite things, which is Deno, but we'll get to that in a little bit. To start off with, we have some announcements for the user group. The first one is that our Geek of the Year competition is coming up on the 10th of December, 6 p.m., so a little less than a month away. Actually, I think it's like 3 weeks away or 2 weeks away. We will have thousands of rounds worth of prizes, and all you have to do is join online like you've done tonight and play a multiple choice quiz game pub style thing that we'll be running. You can play alone, you can play in a team with all around a computer, you can play with your family. There's going to be a wide variety of questions in it. So something I hope for everyone to be able to play and get and show off their cool knowledge. Obviously, there'll be some special sections for developers in it as well. And best of all, it's all free. So it is up on our meetup page if you are interested in winning lots of really great prizes. Make sure you RSVP for that. Also wanted to take a moment to share about a new community if you're based in Johannesburg. This is the tech leadership community. There's a link there as well as a QR code if you want to go see their website. They are having their first meeting in person next week in Johannesburg. It's a free event. Tech leadership has run a Cape Town charter for a long time, and it's been amazing. The work that Tanaka and Benny have done with it. Really, if you are a senior developer, a tech lead, or you're wanting to become someone in that level or above, this is a really great place to go. They cover topics that are essential to people's abilities to succeed in those roles. And so we're very happy to mention other user groups and encourage people to go join them as well. And then finally, it's DevConf is been announced earlier, well, last month. It's the annual conference we run for software developers. I like to think of it as the best event for software developers of the year. We have our tickets on sale, and sponsorships are all on sale where you can get, as well as we also have a call for speakers. So if you want to get up on stage and share something you're really passionate about, that is open until the end of the month as well. You can get all the details at devconf.coza. The call for speakers is available to everyone in South Africa and overseas, and we cover all your travel and expenses as well. So if you are in a far off country and you want to come to South Africa and have all your flights and hotels paid for, and then go on a safari afterwards, as our keynote speaker, Richard Campbell, did this year, you can absolutely do that. It's a great way to see South Africa cheaply. And if you're in South Africa, we'll fly you to the cities that we run the event in, put you up in the hotels, and really have a great time. So if you are interested, call for speakers open at the end of the month. Tickets are going to probably sell out. Not yet. They'll probably sell out sort of March next year, as they normally do. But we do have them on sale, and we have early bird tickets on sale as well. So you can save some money with those. So with that covered, let's dive into Deno. So what is Deno? Deno is a web standards runtime. Because a lot of the time, the easiest comparison I find is to compare it to Node.js, which is a way to run JavaScript outside of a browser. And that is done by embedding the V8 engine from Chrome into this tool set, and then you can run JavaScript with it. And Node's been around for a long time. It was created by a guy called Brian Dull, and it was pretty revolutionary when it came out. But it was very much built as like a V1 of a product. You can really see a lot of the stuff around it was kind of like, oh, this is a good idea to put this in. This is a good idea to put that in. And Deno comes out of Brian Dull looking at Node and saying, he said about a decade ago, what would I do differently? If I could write it from scratch, what would I do differently? And there's an amazing talk from him on YouTube where he does this. And he literally goes like, here's all the problems. This is what I would change. And then he ends that off by announcing that he's doing that with Deno. And so Deno's been out for about a decade. It's had version 1 released. Version 1 really, for me, was like the MVP proof of concept. You could run stuff on it, but I wouldn't call it like production ready. Version 2, though, it's been out for a few years now. That is definitely production ready. You can I run all kinds of things on it in a professional capacity, and it makes my life so much better. And so when we look at this, it's like, well, what can we do better than Node? Why should we care about this? And the first one is that Deno supports TypeScript, as well as TSX and JSX if you're doing front-end stuff, out of the box. Now, Node traditionally has only supported JavaScript, and it still doesn't support JSX and TSX out of the box. You have to have other tools to help with that. Node has started to add in a concept called type stripping, which I'll talk about that later, that lets you kind of use TypeScript in it, but it's not at the same level. Really, if you want the best experience for TypeScript, it is with Deno, and we'll see that in demo just now. Deno also borrows a lot from other programming languages, other ways of looking at things that we do now. So in terms of giving you all the tools you need in one place. So again, if you look at Node, it just ran JavaScript. It was fine, But how did we compile? Like, how do we get TypeScript in? How do we do linting? How do we run tests? All of those things are additional decisions you need to make as a developer. And so you've got to pick your favorite test runner. You've got to pick your favorite linter. And then you've got to figure out how to hook that into Node. And that's a lot of work. Deno gives you everything you need out of the box. And we'll look at a bit of that as well just now. So that you're not focused again on, oh, these decisions like what test runner should I use? You just use the one that's built into Deno. You absolutely can swap it out for other test runners should you want. Totally fine. But there's always a default now. And so it just makes getting up and running a lot faster. It makes it more, your skills, once you know Deno, you're able to take those and just use them on every other project. It's not like when I go to a new client and they have a new, they're using some weird test run I've never learned. I've got to learn all of that stuff. Critically, Deno doesn't need to be backwards compatible. Node does. So, and that means Node has to have some security flaws in it because of design decisions that were made long ago. Those decisions required certain things to be built a certain way. A good example of this is like when you install a Node package, you do allow, it can install various scripts when it installs with npm and Node. And it does that behind the scenes for you. And that can be used for various different things that can make life a lot easier. But that also means that somebody on the internet who made a Node package can run code on your machine without you knowing what's going on. And so Deno doesn't have to care about making sure that works. It can prompt you and check with you. And it's the same for a lot of other things we'll see today. There's just a lot more security baked in because it doesn't have to have all the legacy that Node has. It is, since version 2, fully compatible with Node.js. That is really, really awesome. Well, I say fully, it's like 95%. I'll show you something in a moment, but like you can really take your existing Node code bases, run them in Deno, and those should just work. There should be no issues at all with that. There are additional Deno APIs that you can use to get more speed, to get more things to work, but you don't need to worry about. If you just want to use your Node code as it is today, you can totally do that. And you can even take obviously your JavaScript code and put that straight in. Deno, again, because it could look at the world differently because it was written later, now can run in a higher performance way. So when we compare things like how fast you install packages in Deno versus NPM, or we talk about how many threads or how fast websites can run, Deno outperforms Node in every benchmark. It is really, really impressive. And more than that, it makes it work out of the box. So you don't have to actually worry about like, oh, I have to go get another tool and try to figure that out. And lastly, Deno runs in the cloud. Same as Node does. You can take your JavaScript code, put it into AWS Lambda, and it will run. Deno runtimes also work on the cloud in the same way. So you could totally go and run it in AWS Lambda or Google Cloud Functions. And there's also a specific Deno runtime, which I'll show you a bit later, in the cloud that you can make use of, which is really, really impressive. So that's a little bit like why it's there. I hinted at the fact that there's really good performance and JavaScript compatible, Node.js compatibility. I did a talk for GDG a little over, actually about a year ago almost, actually a little bit over a year ago, at their DevFest conference. It's up on YouTube if you go to their YouTube page. There's an hour-long video where I talk through all the performance sides of it, and we go deep into like seeing how much faster Deno is than Node. We also take Node code that was written a decade ago by NASA and just load it into Deno and it runs, which is absolutely amazing. So if you are interested in that sort of side of it, in compatibility and performance, that's the video for you. I'm not going to cover that today because I want to cover some other stuff, and that video is available to watch. So that's enough sort of intro fluff for this talk. Let's actually see how this works. So what I've got here is my command prompt, and we're going to start off with running Deno in it. This is how you get going with a project. And there you go, it's initialized. You'll see here it's even giving us some hints of what we can do next. So we can run the script directly, and we'll have a look at the code in a moment. And you see it just prints out 2 plus 3. We can also run the unit tests, which I'll look as well. And they're passing. Super nice and easy, really quick. You're up and running with like little scaffolding things. Obviously, you're going to delete this when you go along. So let's have a look at what's in here. So what we've created when we did Deno init, it's created a main file, main.typescript file. And here's a normal function. This should look absolutely like every other TypeScript function you've ever written, because it is just normal TypeScript. Nothing fancy, just export because you want to export it. And then we've got a console log down here, same as you'd expect in Node or in your browser. And that works. The only thing interesting or different in here is this if statement. This basically says, if you're running this file as a main method, so like we've just done at the command prompt, then run this code, else do nothing. And this is useful to have code in one file that you may want to ship as something like this, shipping it as a add function, or as a little tool to add numbers together, but also to have the function separately so you can call the unit test. And if you call the unit test, it won't run this, or if you use it in another library, it won't run it. It's kind of nice to have. In reality, I never use this because I will always have my exports and code in their own files, and then I'll just have like a main file to run my code. But it's kind of cool that they've got things like that baked in. So that's fairly standard. In terms of unit tests, again, this should feel completely normal to everyone who's done sort of unit testing. We're a Deno test function here, or method, and we pass in the function to run and give it a name, and it does an insert equals. Really very similar structure to most of the JavaScript testing libraries. Very simple, nice and easy. We have a deno.json file. This you can think of as your project.json file. And if you're coming from Node, you'll see we have imports in here. And we've got one import already for the assert library. And we also have tasks. And so when we ran this at the command prompt, I just ran deno run and the file, which just took the file and executed it. There's no other weird tools I had to set up, but we can also have a task here. And we'll use this a bit more, but the task lets you add in additional parameters. It makes it easier. And I'm sure you know this from doing stuff. So if we run deno task dev, you can see now it's sitting here waiting. We go back into here, and let's change this to be multiplied and 42, and we go back to there. The answer is correct. We haven't changed the console message. So that all worked absolutely correct. Finally, there's a lock file, same as you'd have with Node.js or Yarn or Button or any of these other tools that do package management. This is just helping you lock things to certain versions. Really quite simple. The deno.json file, we'll look at a bit more as we go along. We'll keep editing this. But for now, the only thing I want to do is just get rid of the watch, because we're going to add some code and work on some stuff. Right. So, and let's get rid of the unit tests because I'm not going to write any unit tests today. You're all smart enough to write unit tests. And it's just nice to see that it's baked into the box. You just ran the Deno test command and it works. So, next thing I want to show you is, let's go and do some stuff like this. Maybe you've got some developer on your team who doesn't really care about formatting, or they were doing some work and they've left in a variable there. Now, obviously, Visual Studio Code here is showing me that it's never used. And you can see there, if you look at right at the end, there we go, this part over here where it says where it got it from, it's actually getting it from the Deno linting rules. So Visual Studio Code has first-party support for Deno in it. So Deno will run perfectly in here and be able to give the Visual Studio Code even more knowledge than just pure TypeScript would. But not only do we have it there, if we jump back to our command prompt, we can run Deno lint, and we have a built-in linter. I didn't have to go find one or anything like that. It's just built in. What's great with this is that there's also a Deno check, which is similar to the Deno linter, and you'll see the formatter in a moment, that actually lets you, is designed for CI/CD pipelines. So when you want to put this into your pipeline, there's a dedicated way to do that in a way that makes sense for pipelines. You're not taking the linter here, which makes sense for humans, and kind of mangle that into there. There was a slight pop-up here, if you're wondering what that was. I use a terminal program called Warp. It's a really amazing terminal program, and it's got some clever AI in it that looks at what I'm doing and then gives me suggestions to try and fix my code or help me out when I'm typing stuff. And you can see here, it saw that there is a message here, like you should have this prefix. And so it's actually figured out what that means and it's given me a code suggestion on it, which is pretty cool. If you want to try out a really cool terminal, Warp's really great. You can turn the AI stuff off as well if you wish. And it still just does a lot of really awesome stuff in it. Right, so let's just go back here. Let's just, I want to come in here and let's, add in some spaces here. Make sure this is like kind of weirdly not formatted nicely. The other command I wanted to show here is Deno format. This is just a formatter. It's baked into your code. And if we go back here, you can see all the spaces have gone and it's cleaned up your code. It'll even do things like if I get rid of that line ending, or the semicolon end, to put it back. You can control these, both the linting rules and formatting rules, through your Deno.json file if you want to override them. It's super useful. I generally don't from the projects I work on. I like the fact that it's just the standard way and everybody works on the same thing, and I don't have to worry about like, oh, we don't like semicolons or whatever. It's just like, that's the way it is. I find that a lot more useful. And formatting, what I often will do with formatting is actually come in here and do Deno format, and then run that, and then have my command run, so that every time I run my code, it formats it. You can also put that into your pipeline in the same way. So that's super useful for that. But so we looked at sort of linting, we've looked at a little bit of formatting, we've looked at the unit tests, we've looked at just running a file directly, we've looked at running tasks. So there's kind of a lot of our stuff that we need to look at. So let's actually get on to building something now, because it's great to see kind of these like little walkthrough demos of a piece of code, but like you really want to know how it is to use it in reality. So today I decided to do a to-do app like a lot of people do. And for this to-do app, we're going to have some tasks. You'll be able to list out the tasks, see what you have, mark them as done, add new ones. Very simple to do this. What I did want to show you before that is, if I go back here, and I need to bring up this over to here. Deno does have an amazing example page in their docs at docs.deno.com with all sort of basic things in here. There's OpenTelemetry, which we'll talk about. There's OS things in here if you want to worry about that, how to handle file system, databases, cryptography, and like, if you want to use Deno with Vue or Next or Svelte or React. There are examples and documentation on all of that sort of stuff, or everything you can need really in the docs. They have a lot of stuff available, which is really, really powerful. But we're not going to use any of those today. This is one I've been playing with. I started writing this Monday night, give you an idea. And like, obviously, this is demo. I've got some notes of what it is. And I can tell you the first time I wrote this, it took me like an hour to get through it all. And I was looking things up as I was going. It's not going to take us an hour today for this. And at no point did I was like, oh, I don't know how to do this. And there's no documentation. Because everything, if I got stuck with something, it's either a TypeScript problem, and I can go online and find all the TypeScript documentation, or if it's a very specific Deno thing, the docs are there to help me. So let's see what this looks like here. We'll start off with creating interface for a task. These should all feel like normal TypeScript-y things. We'll have now you gotta watch me badly type, which is always the case in demos. We'll just pop in some properties. Really simple. Every task has a name, a Boolean flag, and I'll have an ID to look it up and down. Nice and simple with that. Next, I want to create a function to add a new to-do, right? Because I've prepped this in advance, obviously, I know this is going to be async. And I could use a normal function declaration. I like the arrow functions more in TypeScript and JavaScript, but all of it will work. And so what I want to do with this function is you give us a name for the task, we create the task, we return back the ID. Nice and simple. So step one, we need an ID. So how can we do that? The ideal way to do that is with UUIDs, at least for this example. So now I need to go get a library to do UUIDs. Node has a built-in library, which is great. But a lot of the time people will also go and use third-party libraries. And the problem with third-party libraries is you're not always sure what's going to be in it. You may get a piece of code that looks fine and works fine for your needs. Sorry if you can hear my dogs barking. It looks fine for your needs, but it might be doing something behind the scenes. And we've seen this a lot with NPM packages and Node, that they download, somebody will get access to somebody's repository, that a malicious attacker will then change the code in there, ship an update, and then that code is running in the background on lots of people's machines. We've also seen scenarios like years and years ago, we had pad left, which was an NPM package, and it was deleted. And it broke everything that relied on it. And this is actually when NPM had to come up with this idea of like, some things are too important to allow people to delete. So how does Deno sort of try to handle that for us? And we're going to use UUID as an example. So what Deno has done is they've created a thing called the standard library. And the standard library, if you saw there during the testing, actually we already have something from the standard library for a certain, but there's lots of other stuff in here. There's collections functions, there's CLI functions, there's things if you want to work with crypto, all kinds of stuff, maths, and we go down and right down at the bottom here is a UUID one. There's also YAML and CSV. And this is a pre-built library that you can use. What's really awesome with this is, if we go to where it's hosted, is that this is not just a Deno feature, that this is a feature that you can use in lots of other places, in NPM or with anything else. So if we have a look here at, service unavailable. There we go. So we go into here for the UID that we want to bring in. As you got the documentation. This is hosted on a thing called JSR, which is similar to NPM. It's just a different one. NPM is made by Microsoft. JSR is actually made by Deno. Much and much. It's just a repository. JSR has some nicer features in my mind, but both work. And on the right here, you can see you have a dropdown. And so if I want to use the standard library with Deno, that's how I'm going to do it. But if I were on NPM, that's how I do it. And the advantage of a standard library that the people who make Deno believe in is that this is a standard library for JavaScript and TypeScript everywhere you are. This is not locked into just running on top of Deno. And the idea here is to give everyone who uses these languages a safe, reliable, secure way of getting code onto machines and running code. So there's a big thing around Deno, and you'll see as we go along, is like, I'm going to talk about the runtime, but there's a big ecosystem around it. And that ecosystem is really embracing not just its own itself, but trying to be as open as possible. So let's go grab the command here, and we'll go to our command prompt. And you'll see here, the syntax, Deno add, pretty much same as like npm install. We say where we want to get it from. At this point, we're saying we want to get it from JSR, and that's the name. If this was npm, we'd say npm install standard UID or so. So we can run that. It's installed that. And you can see it only took about half a second to do that. It's super fast. Again, here's my very useful warp shell trying to help me out, give me a suggestion, like it can run some AI to import that in my code. I don't need that today. Cool, so let's go and bring that in. For the sake of my typing, I'm going to bring in this. I'll just copy paste this. We're going to use v1 today because why not? This is not really a production thing. If you are going to use like UIDs for a production database, there's like version 7 is a much better version. I just want something kind of simple. So let's do that. Just make use of that. Generate. Cool. So now I have a UID. And so now I just need a pass. And we'll just create a plain old JavaScript object. It has an ID, it has a name, and done is equal to false. Done is not equal to false, done is colon false. And actually what I should do, just to make my life a little bit easier, is to annotate that there. And now I can return ID. Super simple. But we're not doing anything with this. We need to store it somewhere. If I was doing this as a Node demo, I might store this in a JSON file, or I may have grabbed the standard library and used YAML from that. But what I want to do today is something else that Deno has been show you something else that they've been working on called KV. Now, KV is a key value database, meaning it's kind of like a NoSQL database, if you know what those are. You can have a key, which is a set of strings, and that defines sort of how to look something up. And then you have a value, which is an object. And so you can just put into this. KV is amazing. Being a NoSQL database, you get all the things you expect from NoSQL databases: high performance, it can be globally distributed very easily. It's actually built on top of what's called Foundation DB, which is a project out of Apple. And Foundation DB fully supports ACID compliance, like an actual SQL database. And so you can, unlike most things, you don't have to make that trade-off. Do I want a relational database who has full ACID compliance, but I'm going to lose something, or do I want a NoSQL database where I can trade one of those away? You can do both, and you can control things like your eventual consistency if you want. You get all the things like transactions if you want. Super, super useful. And it has all the fun stuff that like more modern databases do, like automatic. You can set expiry on records and they will go away. It versions every insert you do and every update you do, so you can see all the history on every line. Again, you can configure all of these. So how do we make use of this? Well, to start off with, we just need to open up the database. So we'll create a global one here for KV, and this comes from await Deno dot Deno.open KV. Right. Super simple. I have now connected to my database. You'll see here that I've awaited at the top level because Deno, like Node, I think 22 supports, you can now do top level awaits in your file. You don't have to do them just inside functions. Super useful. And so now I want to write this to my database. So I'm just going to await kv.set. This is how you write to the database, and it needs 2 parameters. Our first parameter here is an array of the keys. Now, with KV, the traditional way to think about this, like your first key is normally your database table, because it doesn't have that concept of tables necessarily. But from a usage perspective, I find it useful. I think in tables. I think of collections of things. I think of, because that matters to structure and so on. And it just kind of makes it easier. So I'm going to have a tasks table. for a mental model. In reality, it's just one giant storage of super fast different records, and these ones are tagged with a task type. And then I'm going to give it a second key of the ID, which is super awesome as well. So this, could you think of this just like the primary key? You're right. Nice and simple. And then I just take my task object and drop that in there. There we go. I've written a record to the database. It's that easy. Let's carry on now. We'll go a little quicker now. We want to do get a task next. Again, here we're going to take in a string, and from this we'll return a task or null, depending if we have it. What we need to do first here is get the record from the database. So we'll await kv.get, what type we expect, which is a task, and then we tell it the keys to use. And in this case, we're going to use the same keys. I want it from both of these. That will give us a specific record. You can, I won't show it today, there's a get many where you can actually pass in multiple sets of keys, and it'll actually give you all the different ones that matter. So if you want to bring like 20 records back or something, you can totally do stuff like that. What's really great with this is, imagine you have a user object, like a user table in your database and a preferences table. Well, they're in KV, they're one thing. So you can actually say, give me the record for user and the record for preferences in one call. Super cool shit like that you can do. Really, really amazing. This has given us a record. If we have a look at the record object quickly, you'll see there are three properties. The key, which is this. We know what that is. The value, which is our task or null, if we got one back. And also a version stamp. As I mentioned earlier, this is versioning every change. And so you'll see that this number, as we make changes to our code, to the records, this will change. Probably only see this much later when we get to building an actual API. But it's really cool that that's kind of out of the box. So what we want to do now is just check if this record doesn't exist, then we can just return null. Else, we just return record.value. Cool. Nice and simple. Our next thing we need to do is the ability to get a mark a task as complete. And in this case, it's also async again. We need an ID for a task. And this is not going to return anything, actually, so we'll just leave that all. You'll note that, like, I'm being super lazy here. I'm missing out semicolons. That's definitely not formatted. We'll run the formatter just now to see how much better it makes my code look. In this case, really simple. We need to get the task. So we'll call out get a task. I'll get a task function, passing the ID, right? So now we have the task object. If task, if not task, we can return. So there's nothing to do, we don't find it. Else, we now just need to update it, right? So update the task. This is the object, assign, the task, and the change to the structure we want, which is to set done to true. Really simple. So now we have an object. We could have done task.done equals true as well. I know. I just like using object assign. It makes it look like I know what I'm doing a lot more. And now we just need to write to the database. Very simple. There's no such thing as like an update record. We just set a new one. And because the keys are the same, it will update it. And this is why I needed to get the whole task back and update that. I should like that. And not just like, oh, go update this one field. So this is super simple, super easy, really powerful in those ways. Let me have a question here. Is it an in-memory database, or where is it configured? From Tabojo. That's a great question. So you can configure where it stores the files. It's not in memory. It actually stores it. It persists it. By default, Deno works out a location in your folder, and it'll put it there for you. But you can override that. That's a great question. I'll show. Make sure you email us at any point, and we'll give you a prize for asking. We put the email address in here. So yeah, if you just email it, the prize tonight, we have 3 JetBrains licenses available. So if you want to get a copy of your favorite JetBrains IDE, then you can do that. So if anyone else has questions, please feel free to ask them. Thanks, Josh, for sharing the links for KV. My one light has gone out. Typical. Right, let's turn on that light. It's not as bright, but hopefully it'll work. Right, the last thing we need to do is we need a function that gets all the tasks. Super simple. This is an async function. It's going to return a promise of task array. And now we just need to go and get the tasks. The first thing so what we will do here is we'll get tasks, and we'll do kv.list, and this will give us tasks back. And this takes in a slightly different structure. So in our previous times, we've got in the record using this sort of key function structure. It's an array of strings, really. Here, we are going to give it just a prefix. And so in this case, we say we only want objects that are prefixed with tasks. This is like saying I only want things that come from my task table. Why are you not happy with this? Oh, that should be an array. You can provide multiple things, obviously, in here. So if you wanted something to, like, if you had multiple keys and maybe you had a geolocation key and you want to task for a specific geography, then you could pass that in as a second key and it'll figure it out. Importantly, you'll note that I haven't done an await here. Normally, I'm terrible at typing and I forget things like that, but that's not the case here. What this is actually doing is it's not doing the call to the database. It's setting up the call. And so the actual call is they only give you one record at a time. And this is so you can control the performance. If you need to stop after a certain point, you can sort of do generator functions and return them. There's a lot more flexibility in this, and it makes your code a lot faster. In our case, we want everything, right? So we'll create a new task array to put this in, and then we'll just for await over these, right? It's actually called record and tasks. Of tasks, and this is now everything in here will be awaited. So I can now actually just go record. Well, it'll await when it reads this result back from me, and there you go. I can get my piece, the actual values. So we'll just result.push record.value, and then we can return the results. Nice and simple. So now we have 4 functions in here. We get all the tasks, we mark tasks complete and so on. And now we can go and sort of put this on the screen. So what I'm going to do to start off with, I'm just going to copy and paste some code just to see how that works initially. Get all tasks. And let's just go back here and Deno format to start with. Gone and fixed up all my, this was slightly incorrectly indented. Got all those correct now. Much better code. And you can see all we're doing here is it's starting off going, printing out your tasks. Then we call get all tasks. Then we loop over all the tasks we have and just print them to the screen. And now if we do Deno run dev, that's Deno task dev, we get an error. Oh no. And this is because KV in the CLI is still flagged as unstable. It is, I don't know why they're still flagging as unstable. It's because it's totally useful, like not going to change from now on. And it's not going to get pulled out, but it's in there. Again, my cool little console here is actually doing what I was just going to show you, which is go to my command prompt, go to the Deno.json file and edit it. I'm just going to actually accept that because I'm super lazy today. I'm going to rerun that, and now that runs correctly. And you'll see here from my practice like yesterday that I have some tasks already in here. So good that I kept the same data structure, otherwise we would have a bug. But you can see I've got fixed bugs to do and so on. That's cool. But now I need to make some UI for this to make it look better, like I either want to mark a task as done or add a new task. And I can use command line. I could use things like, put a console login here. Should have an empty line one. I could use something like prompt, which is part of Deno, and you give it a message and you get a string back or null. It's fine. It's okay if you want to type stuff. But I don't like that for the tools I built. I want something much cooler. So to that point, I'm going to use a thing called Inquirer. Not Inquirer. That is the wrong package I opened. No, that is the right package. It is Inquirer. I just got confused with what's going on up here. Inquirer is a really useful library. It's a Node library on NPM. This has got nothing to do with Deno. And it lets you do really cool prompts. So if you've ever seen command line tools that have this sort of stuff, or menus, or much better inputs, or having like confirms with like a yes, no, or nice text inputs with coloring and required and regex, they're probably used Inquirer. But this is a Node package. It's not a Deno package. So and it's on NPM. It's not in the Deno things. So how can we make use of this? Very simply, let's go back here. I need the package name. So in this case, Inquirer. And I can just go Deno, add NPM, autocomplete from practicing this. You'll see here, and I'll just put in the package Inquirer. In this case, I'm just grabbing the prompts piece. So we'll install that. And that took slightly less than a second to grab it from NPM. Super, super fast. And it's really, really easy to work with. Again, got nothing to do with Deno. I just really like this system. I'm just going to copy paste a quick piece of code here to show you what it looks like. And you can see here, I need to add this. Let's go back up to the imports. Import, select from right. And so you can see here, I'm going to have a select. Its return type will be one of these three. Inquirer lets you return all kinds of things. You can return objects. Obviously, you can return just strings. In this case, I'm just going to do a union string, so I know what it is. And then you have a little message, and then you specify what the choice is. And here, my choices are just strings that match to what we return. You can, and you'll see it just now, we're going to add some objects into there, and you can return a different ID and a different name from it, which is super cool. So let's go back to our command prompt here. Deno run task dev, and it's not running. Why is it not running? Well, because this code is now requesting access to the environmental variable term. And this is because Inquirer needs to know what terminal settings you have so it can render things correctly to the screen. And this is super great, useful, because in Node, it doesn't do this. And if you're like me, you probably have keys for your favorite AI or things in your environment variable for production or your dev environment or your staging environment. And it's all set up in your environment variables. And every piece of Node code can just access and read it without you looking. And it's the same in production. Somebody could write a piece of code that doesn't do anything on your machine, goes into production, and starts pulling out the username and password for your database. And so Deno will not let things like this happen without permission. In this case, it's reading from environment variables. The same is true for writing to files, reading from files. You'll see just now we'll have it for network requests. It's really, really useful. And we can either choose to allow it just this once, we can deny it, or we can just say, and these two are, this specific one is only for this environment variable. So if it tries to read a different environment variable, it'll prompt us again. We also have capital A here if you want to allow all of them. I'm just going to say no for now. You'll see here, we can put a flag in, so we'll grab that. It's nice to air it out. And we can come here and just pop this flag into there. The Deno JSON file also lets you specify these in here now. So you don't have to pass them as parameters all the time. That was a newish feature. It's only been out for a few months that you can actually put in your config file and define them. I quite like doing this just for the demo, because then I can also show you, we can just lock this to a certain one. So now I'm allowing it, Deno, to read only this environment variable. I trust that I know what's in there and everything's going to be fine. So let's run that again, and boom, all worked this time. And now you can see we've got our list from above, and now we have this cool little menu system. I mean, none of it works in it yet, but this is way better than I could build. Super, super cool, that. Let's ask questions quickly. Stephen says, you search online, and Deno KV is in beta. And you're asking if I use it for production. Yes, I actually do. I do use it for a little bit of like CLI stuff, but I'll show you later where I use it for production. And it's a slightly different way, but I totally use it there in production. And can you use it from Node? It's a great question. I actually don't know. I actually use KV from Node. But yeah, thanks for the question, Stephen. Definitely email us again at the end, and we'll give you a prize for that question. And Josh, who has asked, does Deno offer any enhancements to error logging, reporting? Yes. Yeah, it's a great question, Josh. I'm going to show you that, but just now, no question for you because you help run the user. No prize for you because you help run the user group. But yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. Right. So this function here is now going to give us this in the response. Give us as a string value. I'm just going to grab some code and we'll talk about it as we go, because you don't need to see each time. Right. So if the result of our select here is add, we will then prompt. I'm just doing the Deno prompt here just to show, or the normal prompt here just to show you kind of what it looks like. If we don't type anything, we call Deno exit. This just exits out the code. So just a Deno function to help us. Node has similar, and we pass in an exit code. So if you wanted to build cool scripts, and this has their own thing, we should call this add the do. It's just casing there. Nice and simple. That will add the to do and then exit out the code. Next one is if we want to, we have two options. So we add, mark done, and quit. So we need to do mark done next. Then we just check on that. And we already have all the tasks. So I want to be able to prompt the user for which task they want to mark as done. And so here we've got the task and we've got that all the way right at the top here from there. And I'm just going to filter them to anything that's not done. And then I'm going to map them that the name to an object that has a name, which matches the task name, and a value, which matches the ID. Right? So just like, you know, it's kind of tuple type thing, just the key and value type. Nice and simple. Now that I've got an array of the tasks that I need to, that are available to mark as done, I want to show them to you. And again, I'm going to use that cool select thing from Inquirer. And in this case, I'm going to return a string, which is going to be my ID or null if you don't choose any. Here's a message, task mark is done. And you'll see here's the choices. And I'm putting in my array we've got from here. And this time we're using both the name and the value. Previously, we just had a string. I'm also adding in a separator, which we'll just add that in here quickly. It's just a nice little UI effect. And then I'm adding one more object at the end. And I'm doing this manually. This is mark none, and it has a value of null. So that if you kind of go to mark done and you change your mind, you can just quit out of that. And if you select one of them, and it comes back with a string, being the ID, then we just call mark task is complete with that ID. It's super simple. So let's go back here. I'm going to do a format again just because that code's making my life, making me feel bad. And we'll run dev here. Right, so now we've got our various pieces of functionality all lined up. So let's do add and show an awesome demo. Cool, and that ran and quit. And if we go run it again, there we go, show an awesome demo. Let's mark one as done. And you can see here now we go to done. And you can see I get my list. It looks really cool. I've got make dinner because that's to do. I've got show awesome demo, that's also to do. There's our separator line. You can see I'm just showing off Inquirer. There's nothing to do with them. You know, if you're going to make CLI tools, just use this. And there's our cool little mark done. I can choose that and it quits out. We rerun it. Everything's still the same. And I did make them before this. I made a lovely vegetarian gnocchi. And I can mark that as done. So, and we can go back in here and it's all done. So that's all worked out really well. Super, super simple, really easy to work with. And kind of what I'm hoping you've taken away, let me move this off my screen, from this is sort of we've done that to-do project. You know how to do the code. We've seen a bit of Deno KV. We now want to make this a console app. So this is just a script, right? If we have a look in this folder, I just still have one TypeScript file. It would be really cool if I could package this up as an executable and share it, right? Or have that as part of my build server, where it builds like an actual executable that I could then give to people. Ayanda is asking, is this session recorded? It is, and I'll make sure it goes up onto our YouTube channel after the event. So how do I turn this script into an executable? Very simply, Deno compile. As you can see from my practice, I've already got the line in my command prompt here. We pass in the same parameters. You need to pass them in so that compile sets the permissions. So we'll do that. And it's now going to compile. It's now created, if we go in here, a 70 meg executable. And that seems like a lot. This file's only, 2K. It's tiny. But what it's added into there is it's added everything we need. So we have all the Inquirer stuff from NPMs in there. The KV stuff's in there. All the dependencies, so Inquirer has its dependencies like CLI width and emoji regex and all of this stuff. It's all in there. It's also added in the Deno runtime. So I can give this to you even if you don't have Deno installed. And in this case, it's a build specifically for Mac because that's what I'm on. And if you have a Mac, you can just do Deno demo. And in a moment, it comes up and there you go, all working. You'll see now no tasks listed here because this has a different location for its KV, but it all worked wonderfully that way. It's really, really useful if you are building like 2E tools or you want to. The other really useful way for this is actually as part of your compile. If you wanted to build a web server, you could actually pre-compile everything, get everything set up, and then deploy that rather than deploying a Docker image. Or you may want to put this in a Docker image and then you just have like a set binary. I don't often use this. I use it for little tools I build and to share around, but I haven't used it actually for servers, but it is available there. I'm just going to delete this because it's 70 megs and we don't need that for our next feature. So this is a good point to add this to Git. So because I want to show you the next thing and I need to get this into Git. So git add, git commit, and pull this up. Right, I just don't want to lose that. I will show you that a little bit more. Why it's useful there. Thank you, my very useful UI tool, terminal tool telling me it can write unit tests for me nowadays. Right, so what I want to do now, we've built this as a CLI. Let's turn this into a REST server. And so what we can do, if we go all the way up here, I'm just actually going to get rid of everything from here. Well, I committed that so that you can, if you are interested in seeing this code, you can go to the Git commits and see that, see the history from that. We'll clean all that out. And we just have our functions. And now I want to turn this into something we can use. So how do we do that? Well, you can see me scrolling on my other screen to make sure I've got my little notes here. What Deno has a full built-in web server, same as Node does, right? It has a web server. You call it via Deno serve and you pass in a function. You can see here, it takes a request, returns a response. Super, super simple. And you can use that, you can read the request and then you can say, okay, if it's this path, I want to return this response and so on. Very, very simple. Actually, let's do that quickly just to show you how easy this is. So we're not even worried about the rest of the code. We just drop that in there, and we can go Deno run task, Deno task dev. And the first thing you'll see here, prompting us for network access. I hinted at this earlier, that it's saying, hey, your code's trying to access the internet. Is that expected? A real case where this would have been useful was at British Airways about 3 years ago. They had a website where you could book your tickets, and that website was built on top of React and ran with Node. And one of the packages that NPM had installed was compromised, but it was compromised specifically for British Airways. So it didn't show up on anybody else's system. Like nothing happened. It just, the code didn't execute. And what it did is every time somebody put in a credit card, it then sent that credit card via an HTTP post to another website. And they exfilled a lot of people's credit card information. And there was the only way they found it out was because they had network monitoring. So they had really fancy tools you'd expect a company like British Airways to have that was checking like what's coming in and out of our network. And they saw these like requests going out and they weren't sure why. And that's how they picked it up. That's awesome. It's great when you have a team like that in security, and that's what you should have when you're dealing with people's money. But not everyone has that. And if they were running on Deno, they wouldn't have needed it because it wouldn't have run it by anyway because it wouldn't have had permission, which is super useful. I'm just going to hit A to let this run, and we have our code running here. And what I will do instead of opening, actually, we could probably open, where's my browser gone? Let's bring my browser back onto the screen. There we go. Okay. And we can actually just do localhost 8000. And we get hello world. Super simple. You can go away now. And we'll go back to here. What I was going to do is curl. If you have not used curl, you really got to give curl a try in life. It's just a great little tool at your command prompt that you can run for website to access websites. And I always thought it was just like, oh, it does this one thing. It has like 900 functions in it. It can do amazing things. If you go onto YouTube, there are awesome videos showing like all the power of curl. I'm not even going to show you that much today. But just know curl is really, really amazing. All I'm going to do today is use it instead of like interacting with the web browser. So we have, that's how easy that is. And you can just use that Deno serve function in the code like that. It can get tiresome to kind of write all this out over and over and over again. Like if you want to have like, I want to build a thing that's going to do routing, and I want a thing that will handle middleware, all the stuff you'd expect from a web framework. And so actually, what I should have done is brought my browser, kept my browser here. Let's bring my browser back onto the screen. And so to sort that, I could use something like Express if I was on Node, or I could use Hono. Again, if I was on Node, Hono is a great library for just building fast systems. You'll see here, this is as complex as Hono gets to do a hello world. So we do an import, we spin it up, and then you write app.get, you say what path, and you return it. And that's it. That's 4 lines, and you have a web server running on Node. And the joy of Deno is that it runs everything that Node can run pretty much. And so we go back to our command prompt here. We can go Deno add, Hono is hosted on JSR, which is awesome. Again, you can use this in Node. They just prefer to host on JSR instead of NPM. So I'll just add that in there. And now we'll go up to here, and we will import Hono into our code, because I just don't want to have to type out all of this over and over again. Right, let's go down here. And as we saw in the sample code there on their website, we'll just spin up our Hono server. And what I need to do now is deno.serve, the same command we did before. We just pass in the function that Hono provides to it. And now I can start doing things like app. So if I call / on this, I would like to do an async function. And this function should return a JSON object that has all our paths. parentheses there. Cool. So we have that all in there set up. Let's have a look at this at the command prompt. We'll do Deno run Deno task dev. We'll get the prompt about metric permissions because I haven't put that into our file. Copy that to do that in a moment. And if we go to curl, boom, all our stuff from KV here. It looks like trash. We can pipe this to JQ. If you've not used JQ, again, it's got nothing to do with Deno. This is just an amazing tool for working with JSON at the command prompt. I'm going to use it because just to format JSON like this, because I'm super lazy. But if you wanted to do, it can do so much. It can like fix JSON, it can merge JSON, it can help you search through it. It's amazing. It's an amazingly powerful Swiss Army knife for working with JSON. But here we go. You can see all the IDs, the done, the true, and so on. Super, super easy to work with. And so I will copy paste some more in here just to show you how these work. So if we want to do a post to the /URL to add a task, this is how we do it. We read the JSON body, and then we get the title, and we do that in there. And I'm going to return back a text response of the ID with an HTTP status of 201. Super, super easy. Our next one in here will be how we get a specific record. I've just got an ID in here, and we can read that parameter from here. We call that. We get nothing back. We return 44. You get what's going on. And again, I'm showing you this. I'm showing you Hono in Deno. Hono will work in Node if you're using Node. So very, very useful there. And our most complex one, just marking and task is done. We just do that with a put. And it's basically the same as getting. So we get the ID, then we get the task, and then we call mark await. And here I'm going to say return a status of 204. Well, set the status to 204 and then return an empty body. Because 204s generally don't have a body. Super, super easy. You know what I didn't do was go and make sure that we had all the network access. I'm going to have to do that. We'll just need to run this one more time. It'll be fine. Let's do that. Cool. So now that's running there. If we go back to our command prompt here, everything still runs. We still see that. But now I can also go /that, put that ID in, and there's the one record back. Again, I could pipe this to JQ if I wanted to make it look pretty, which is super useful. We can take that out, and we can say we want to do a post, and post, as I think it's D is my parameter for this. Yeah, D. I need to pass in a JSON object, and so here I want to pass in title and and if all that works, we'll get the ID back of the new record. There we go. And so now we can again just go boop boop, and there you go. Curl is magic as an item. And this time I want to mark it as done. You can see here it's false. We'll just do a put. And now it's marked as done. We built a full REST API in a few minutes for our little task. Super, super easy. So we have a little database. We have a REST API. That's all working really well. Now it'd be really cool if I could let you guys play with this and not just me. So step one, let's commit everything again. And REST API. Oh, actually, I want to show you one thing before I do this, but I can still do this commit. The one thing I did want to show you that I forgot, let's go back here, is this isn't the only way to serve code. Deno offers another option, which is you can actually just export your code. You need to export a default object called fetch, and we'll pass that function, that affect function that we pass to Deno serve. But now there's actually no code that runs in here. If I go back to my command prompt and rerun this, nothing happened, right? Just ran and ended. But you see here's warning. It's like, hey, I found this fetch. Do you want me to run this with dinoserve? So what is dinoserve? Dinoserve is another command. And we'll just pass all this in to that command. So instead of run, we do serve. And now we have a web server again. And you're like, cool, Robert, you've now shown me I can do it in code and I can do it in a command from, like with this other command. Why would I ever use this command? Because this command gives you like 5 times performance than doing it in the code. It is super fast for parallelizing your code. It handles like load balancing internally. It does so much. If you are going to run production websites on top of Deno, you definitely want to make use of dinoserve instead of, if you're going to do small things, totally use the dinoserve library in the code. No problem. You're going to get amazing performance from that. But if you really are wanting top end performance, this is how you get the top end of performance. The best analogy I have to this, from the Node side is, and this is something I've done a lot of time, is I will like create a Node project with Express, for instance, and then I use PM2, which is a process manager for Node. And then that kind of load balances all the requests across my whole computer. Kind of the same thing, except this is specifically for Deno. It's specific for web hosting, so it's got like a lot of optimizations, and it's built into the framework. So it's not an extra thing like PM2 that's trying to actually effectively running multiple instances of a node to do this. This is running one instance of Deno, and it's really performing very fast, which is cool. Let's just put this back for now. So that should be all cool. If we go here, the thing I haven't done now is I haven't put this anywhere. So I'm going to be super lazy and publish this to a GitHub repo using Visual Studio Code. I got my GitHub already hooked up, obviously. So my password manager there, checking in for my password. And it's published to GitHub now. And now I'd like to make this available to you. So again, let me bring my browser back across to here. And the way I'm going to do that is with a thing called Deno deploy. Deno deploy is also fairly new. It's only a couple of years old, but it is a way to run Deno applications and more on the internet. You can imagine this like for Cell, for instance. And you can see I've got some stuff in my default, my little personal project in here that's running. And you can see like the one website here is getting 2,178 requests a second. Oh, 2,178 requests. And you can see the latency here is 8 millis. This is super fast. And this is like a React website that I have not optimized in any way. This is really good numbers in there. And how hard is this to deploy? Well, all you have to do, there is a playground if you want to play with this, and it's free. In fact, the usage numbers on this on the free tiers are amazing. You can run definitely anything in your personal project space on this for a long time before you have to worry about paying for anything. But we can go to new app here. And when it comes up, I'm hoping like the internet isn't broken again like it was yesterday with Cloudflare. Oh, so slow. I'm just going to refresh the whole page. I think it's having a moment. Or maybe my internet's having a moment. Wouldn't be a good demo if it didn't break somehow, right? Open a new tab just in case something. Sometimes I find Firefox, much as I like it, sometimes weirdly with this networking. Ooh. Oh my gosh. I'm hoping that my internet not. Oh gosh, come on. Anything? No, I think it's frozen out. It crashed out. Right. What I was going to show you in there, which for some reason I cannot. Oh. There we go. I don't know what that was. Just hit new. There we go. Now it's running properly. Can come into there, and I click New Application. And you can see here, the first thing it tells you is, like, what do you want to run here? You can run just plain old JavaScript in here, super easy. Do you want to run a fresh app? You want to run next.js instead of on here, instead of as hell? You can do that. You can run all of these things in here. You can even run just normal JavaScript like you would from Node and run it in here. Totally not a Deno only thing. It's just a system that the company behind Deno has made. Obviously, for today, we're going to do the Deno project before. So I'm going to tell it which Git repo to look for. Then it finds all my Git repos. This is why I needed to push it up so it can read from there. We can add app configs, add environment variables, all that sort of stuff you'd expect. We can edit all these things. You can build presets and so on. You can choose where it's hosted. This is one of the downsides of Deno deploy that only have the US and Europe at the moment. They're done this intentionally so that they can get the system really, really good. You can choose all regions and it'll deploy to both. But I'm hoping at some point they'll support more than just those 2 points, particularly for us at the bottom of the world. And then you hit create app. And now it's going to go to GitHub. It's going to grab the code and it's going to do the full CI/CD. And it did it faster than I could talk because there it's already pulled it down, prepared it, done the build. I was having this problem yesterday as well. And everything is working the way you should. In this case, it's unhappy about something in my code, and I cannot remember how I fixed this. But this should all just run normally. You can go into here and hit edit and retry. If you want a database, and this is where I've used Deno KV in production, you just come into databases, you hit provision a new database, select KV. You'll see you can also get Postgres in here, and just hit, demo BD. And you pick a right location. I've created it, and I can assign it to my project. And now my code can work directly with that database. It's really, really awesome. You can also hook this up to AWS and GCP. It also have a connection so that you have a secure connection from this to your services in AWS and GCP. And then let's actually go back, since this one is unhappy for some reason. I'm just going to show you. This is actually for DevConf. This is a website that we have there, and it's fairly stock standard system in here. Actually, I don't know if I have any logs in here. This one has no logs because it's not a Deno project. Do I have metrics in here? I should have some metrics in here. It'll have some metrics. On an actual Deno project, though, to Josh's point from earlier, like how is the error handling, reporting, logging? Deno ships with full open telemetry support in the box. And open telemetry is the best standard you can find for getting things like your HTTP requests, getting your traces, adding additional metrics so you can see how things are going. All of that's in here. It's really, really awesome. And again, I'm showing it on Deno's deploy. That's unhappy with me at the moment. But if you were to do this, you can use the open telemetry with Grafana and take your whole code and just deploy it onto AWS. It's an open standard. And that's kind of, again, going back to that point about Deno, that they're going to ship a lot of things, but they kind of don't. They're building for a better whole ecosystem of JavaScript, not just to kind of lock you into their tool and somehow make money by selling an AI subscription in 2 years' time. I know that's not how they work. They work by making great tools and sharing them out with everyone. So that demo didn't quite work, but if the build had worked, then what would have happened is you would have seen that code running and we could actually hit the URLs in the same way. But I'm not going to go and try and debug the actual thing now because we're almost at the end of it. So we can deploy it to the cloud for free. As I say, you can put lots of stuff on there. I've got a couple Deno accounts. I use it with actual client work as well now and put onto Deno deploy. It's really, really awesome. So that's kind of all the demo-y stuff. What did we see today in terms of tools? I showed you curl briefly. If you really wanted to just fun command prompt stuff, I showed JQ for like formatting, Java, JSON, and you can do much more with that. If you're wondering what my terminal was warp, it's got the cool AI stuff to help me be a better developer and use shell commands better, I use Fish Shell on top of that if you're interested in that. Obviously, we saw Visual Studio Code. I pushed my code to GitHub as well, and then Deno deploy, which wouldn't let me have a perfect demo because it's something weird there. So that's all working. That's all the tools we saw. And then in terms of the commands we saw in Deno, we saw the test command to run unit tests. We saw the lint command to lint our code. We saw the format command to clean up the code. I did also mention the check command, which is like Deno lint and format, but designed for your CI/CD pipelines. Deno run to run a specific file. Deno task to build up tasks. Deno add adds libraries to our package. You can also do Deno remove, obviously, and remove them. And Deno serve, which is the high performance web server that is available. So which should you use? And I want to be clear that while I think Deno is a really amazing tool, it's not going to be perfect for everyone. Node.js absolutely has a larger existing user base. And that's important. That probably means that the company you work for is already signed off on using Node. You don't have to go through approval processes or having things checked out that you might need to do with Deno. It also means that every bug is being found. You're not going to be the first person to find a bug on Node anymore. It is rock solid. Deno is still a lot younger, and especially the web stuff is even younger than that. So if you are, I would say in an industry where you really can't have anything, or you're really worried about that, Node.js may make a better choice. It's really important to remember, though, that you can move all your Node.js code to Deno in future. So you're not making a choice that locks you into Node. You always have that option. I mentioned this before, but Deno is not burdened with all that legacy that Node.js has, and that helps with things like security and performance and things. But Node.js has compatibility, right? I know if I have a Node.js project from 5 years ago, it's probably going to run fine now. It's not going to be a problem. And with Deno, they have 95% or so Node.js compatibility. So most of the code will run. As I mentioned in the other video I've got, we took a 10-year-old Node.js code base from NASA and ran that with no changes and just worked. It's really awesome. Deno aims for web compatibility, which is slightly different than Node. And what I mean by web compatibility is that if there's a function in your browser, Deno wants to support it. So things like session storage and local storage, which you know from your web browser's APIs, Deno has them built in as well. You can actually use that in your CLI tools or in your server code. Node.js's focus is different. It was built to run JavaScript code in the browser, in a command line or in a server thing. It didn't aim for web compatibility. And so some things in Deno will have that Node.js just doesn't. And that can make it a lot easier to get started with Deno, particularly if you're a front-end dev. Deno fosters per request. In any way you want to slice this, website loading, requests on APIs, adding packages, things like that, it's faster than Node. If you really do care about high performance, this is the system to go with. Due to Node.js's compatibility requirements, they are going to push some security to your responsibility, right? So we spoke about the British Airways problem where they had this code running. How would you solve that? Well, people expect you to go and check all the packages you're using, look up their history, look at all of that. That's kind of what you have to do with that because you're granted that compatibility with Node.js. Deno isn't burdened with that. So they've changed that security responsibility around. There is still a security responsibility to you. If you install the wrong package, nobody can help you there, right? If you go and just allow all the permissions to that package, nobody's going to be able, Deno can't save you from that. But it does take a lot of the responsibility into the tooling. And I have mentioned briefly at the start, Node.js wants to support TypeScript. And it does it today by a thing called type erasure. And I'll give you a quick example of what I mean by that. We were to take one of our functions here. And if I was to take this, and let's just take this one here, and give this to Node.js and let it do type erasure, what it will do is it actually comes in here and deletes that. Actually, if you look at the way it does it, it leaves all the spaces in, it's kind of weird. And so do this. Well, we'll have some space there. It would get rid of this bit here, and that, and I think that's fine. And so Node.js, when it does this, takes your TypeScript code, rips all the types out of it so that it is now JavaScript, effectively, and then runs that. It's not running TypeScript code. And that's important because there are some things that you can't do this with, right? If we have a look, the easiest demo one is enums, right? You make use of enums in TypeScript, like hello, whatever your enums are. There's no equivalent to this in JavaScript. You can't strip this out. And the way TypeScript handles that is when it takes the TypeScript, the code and goes through your TypeScript compiler and changes JavaScript, it actually has a whole bunch of functionality to that in the background, but you can't do that. And which means if you use enums in TypeScript, you cannot use Node.js's type erasure. It just won't work. They're going to get there. I'm convinced that they're going to tackle each one by one. It also means, though, that you have type erasure, but you still don't have linting. You still don't have all your other things for TypeScript. And you still need tools that will handle the TypeScript parts of it. So if you're building packages to put on Node, or if you're trying to use other TypeScript packages in there, you need all of that stuff as separate tools, like with Webpack or whatever other system you're using. I think Node will get to the point, probably in a few years' time, where they're closer to supporting TypeScript, but they're never really, their goal is not to actually support TypeScript, but make it possible to bring TypeScript in and run it as if it was JavaScript. Deno runs TypeScript. It's actually running it inside using the proper TypeScript compiler stuff, and that's really useful because that also means all the things in our TS config just work. We can add that to Deno and it just works. You can't do that with Node.js's type erasure. It also means that when TypeScript eventually ships their, I think they're rewriting it in Golang, and they're like talking about like 10-time performance improvements for compiles. That will work. You'll get that in Deno because it's using the proper tools. Node.js will never get that because they're not trying to support TypeScript. It's a subtle difference. It probably doesn't make a lot of difference to most people. You probably run up against like the enum stuff, but it is useful to think about how important is TypeScript to you now. If you really want the best experience, Deno is the place to be. If you're wanting to use TypeScript in Node and you're okay with some rough edges, then their type erasure stuff's pretty good. And then that's it. So Teboho and Stephen G, don't forget to email us at admin@developerusagroup.org.today for your prizes. And if there's any questions, happy to answer them. Otherwise, that'll be us. I still have one JetBrains license to give away, so if anybody asks a question, you're going to get it. You can also unmute your mic if you want to ask a question instead. All right. I don't think anyone's got any questions. Either I've completely convinced you that Deno is amazing, or you're like, I already need to have dinner. This is too much. This guy talks too fast, probably. But yeah. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. And yeah, don't forget 10th of December for Geek of the Year. Lots of prizes we won. It'll be a really great time. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining tonight.
Good. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye-bye.